Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, Bob Przybylo here from the SoonersGroup.com studios. A lot of stickball to get into, Bob. Oklahoma wins the Norman Regional. They get through to the Women's College World Series. Much expected. Florida State, not so much in the circle. That was kind of, I think, my biggest takeaway from the weekend. Offensively, though, really good performance. We'll get to softball here in a second. OU baseball coming off of a Big 12 tournament. They got to the championship game. Just can't beat Oklahoma State. I think that's the situation there. They lose 9-3 in the championship game. Some really exciting baseball, though, leading up to that with the Jackson Nicholas walk-off home run on Friday night. The come-from-behind 7-air game on Thursday, and a really good performance against Peyton Tolle, the stud left-handed pitcher for TCU in the opener. We'll get to the baseball stuff, Norman Regional, all that kind of stuff coming up this weekend at Del Mitchell, first regional since 2010. But let's stick with the softball. OU's back to where they want to be, right? The Women's College World Series coming up on Thursday, 1:30 start for Oklahoma, taking on Duke, who goes to Columbia and upsets Missouri. I guess there's some surprises when you're talking about some of the softball teams that are going to be coming. Here's the schedule real quick, and we'll run down everything kind of setting up for Thursday for the Women's College World Series. We have Media Day coming up on Wednesday.
Yep.
It means that it obviously, if you look at the weather forecast for this week, it means that the Women's College World Series is here with all of the rains that is expected in the metro area. Alabama, UCLA, the first game coming out on Thursday at 11 a.m. OU Duke at 1:30. Texas, who got a little, they got pushed.
That was a fun one.
They got pushed
fun.
down in Austin by Texas A&M. They get through, the number one team in the country. Stanford, that's going to be a 6 o'clock game, and then the 8:30 game on Thursday. From a storyline perspective, maybe the most interesting of the first day in Oklahoma City at Devon Park, Florida and Oklahoma State. Tim Walton, Kenny Gajewski, obviously really good buddies. OU baseball guys have their softball teams 4-5 there with Florida and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State really good over the weekend against Arizona. I kind of thought that Arizona might push them a little bit. Let's back up, though. Let's go back into the Norman Regional. A really good performance for Patty Gasso's group as they win the best of 3, 2-0. Didn't have the if game, but just kind of your overall thoughts from the Norman Regional or Super Regional down in Norman at Lowe's Field.
Sort of what you thought would happen based on what's happened to Florida State's pitching staff. And even McKenna Reed trying to gut it out Friday night. And
she pitched with a back fracture?
Yes.
How's that even possible?
Like, they've been keeping that under wraps for the entire month. And then here comes McKenna Reed trying to, I guess Lonnie said they were on a 50-pitch limit. She went 35, and like, wow, back fracture.
That's insane.
That is ridiculous, but that's like what they had to try to do to get to where you want to go.
Sure.
And it's weird because we've talked with Patty Gasso repeatedly about Ella Parker, Cassie Pickering, like they haven't been tensed up in the moment. Florida State was. They were tensed up on Thursday night. Lonnie admitted their freshmen were not ready. They were Friday. So game 2 felt probably more in line of what they thought they might see the entire weekend, but you had your dud. And OU took advantage Thursday with run rule, gave themselves a lot of room to breathe, a lot of flexibility in terms of what to do in the circle, and Patty used, a lot of arms Friday, just try to get through it, but that was where the experience paid off, and they were ready to go right from the jump.
Thursday night, I believe, in Globe Life Field after the Oklahoma game, and it was kind of one of those like, okay, it's 2-0, and then all of a sudden it was 2-2, and you thought, all right, maybe they're going to be in some type of series. Let's start with the pitching, though. It seemed like Hallie Maxwell in the game 1 was pretty hit and miss. Everything kind of slowed down for her after they retook the lead after it was 2-2.
Yeah, and she fought her way through it. And I guess something Patty mentioned repeatedly in that post-game press conference, how important it was for Kelly to get the 5 innings, go almost 130 pitches, and just say, you've got to be able to have and live up to this type of moment, because we might have this.
Right.
In OKC, we might have a game where you need to do kind of what those Alabama and Tennessee pitchers were doing on Saturday, where you've got to go well over 100 pitches no matter what the circumstance is. And she was able to do it. No, she wasn't at her best. And, it was funny to kind of see her fight through it every single inning. But through all that, you only gave up 3 runs total, and it allowed Friday to go with Kirsten Deal, go to Carly Keeney, and then of course wrap it up with Nicole May, who is just on a next level. The type of level we thought we might see in February and March is now the May that has shown up during the last 3 weekends.
When you're talking about the Oklahoma offense throughout the Super Regional, it seems like the bats was it more about the bats showing up, or were they just taking advantage of a Florida State team that certainly lacked the veteran arms, I guess, that you could lean on at this time of the season? It seemed like they took advantage of some freshmen.
And that's where my qualifier does come in. It's like, yeah, the offense looked good, but this was a series where it needed to. Like, there'd be no excuses to not look good in this series when Florida State's down 2 of their better pitchers that they have. And so you take advantage of a freshman, and so you get the 11-3 win. You come back with the 4-2 victory Friday. It still feels like they're not always coming through in the clutch, but they have so many timely situations. Eventually, a couple of them come through, and so far that's been enough. But we'll see if they can bring that type of offense against a Duke pitching staff that's really, really good. I know people look at that foursome there compared to the 1-8-4-5 and say, man, OU got a very favorable draw. But I always go back to what Patty says about their run in 2000. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
So we were just happy to be there, and we played free and fresh. And that's Duke. First ever trip, OKC. They don't know what they don't know. It's not OU trying to go for 4 in a row. It's Duke saying, why not us? Let's spoil the party.
Well, it's a Duke team that you'd have to go all the way back to the beginning of the season, but they did play in Puerto Vallarta. What was it? A
3-0.
3-0 win. T.R.A. Jennings had a home run. Alana Torres had an RBI single. Cassidy Pickering had a single that ended up scoring a run on an error. Kelly Maxwell was good, though, all the way back back in February, if you can believe it or not. But it is a team that I guess they're somewhat familiar with, a team that we talked about when the regionals came out. There was a good feeling that they were underseeded, that they could end up back in Oklahoma City or come to Oklahoma City. Just in terms of the Women's College World Series and how everything sets up for Oklahoma, are they still one of the favorites going into this weekend?
I'd have to think so. I mean, you just look at that other foursome with OSU, Texas, Nyjah Kennedy, the way she bounced back from a rough outing Friday to get Stanford back there. To think that only one of those teams will survive is pretty incredible. But you look, Maya Brady with the Bruins, and you got Claire Davidson, one of the best players in the country with Duke, and the way Alabama beating Tennessee, to me, was the only shock in the entire weekend, but it was a huge shock. Yeah. I thought Tennessee would be the toughest test for OU among their foursome, and now they're not even involved in it. So it just very, maybe that team's getting hot. Crimson Tide haven't been someone we've really talked about a lot in the national title picture, but if you get hot this time of year and you just start riding that wave, obviously a lot of good things can happen. But going up against Duke when they've got 3 first-team All-Americans, so it's not like Duke's easy.
Sure.
This will be a tight one, but you just feel that the experience that OU has, Duke's either going to be wide-eyed and scared or just playing free and having the time of their lives.
It does seem a little bit comfortable, though, that Patrick Murphy's bringing a team back to Oklahoma City. It seems right when Alabama is involved in some form or fashion in Oklahoma City. So that's going to be the schedule going into the week in Oklahoma City. I've always kind of thought it's kind of weird, like you win to not play Friday correctly.
Well, that changed because it used to be that the winner's bracket played Thursday and Friday, but now you're giving them that day off.
Right. Good, bad, indifferent.
Good.
Okay.
You look what OU was able to do last year. It meant you can rest Jordy Ball and use her every single time out. So if you win, you get that Friday off, and then you come back Saturday afternoon. You can set it up well for your pitching staff. You do yourself a world of favors by being able to get that first game. And then, all right, now we can go Nicole May, we can go Kirsten Deal, and how important it was to get Deal out there on Friday night, even if it wasn't her best outing either. It's still like you've got to have postseason experience so that when we call upon you here in OKC, there's full trust and there's full confidence on your end as well.
That was going to be my question. So Kelly Maxwell probably game one.
So.
Like Nicole May hasn't done enough to unseat her, I guess, as the opening night starter.
I don't think so, because what Nicole May's done in the last 3 weekends has shown she can come out of the bullpen.
Yeah, which Oklahoma obviously needed. We've talked about that.
I mean, we talked about going back to the Texas game in the Big 12 championship, but now we go the Friday night Florida State. I asked Patty the question. I go, we saw on the TV broadcast Kelly Maxwell warming up time and time again, but did you know, like, Nicole was going to be your person if you got to the 6th inning of a tight game? It's like, yes. Like, there's no one I'd rather have in that moment than Nicole May, who goes 1-2-3 in the 6th, 1-2-3 in the 7th. Hasn't walked a batter since Bedlam. Like, ever since Bedlam, she's finally taken her game to that level after the month of April was terrible for her.
Right.
There's no doubt about that.
I mean, we were wondering if, like, can you even put her out in the circle? It's been that big of a liability.
Yes, and then Bedlam was like the definition of rock bottom for what OU has for its standard.
Sure.
But to come back the way that she had and just been lights out, no walks, 18 strikeouts in 4 appearances, around 14 innings, just that's the type of dominance that you're like, if OU gets this type of pitching, they're not going to need a lot of hitting. They need some hitting, but they won't need a lot if May and Maxwell do what they've been doing.
Very good. You would think, too, at this time of the year, and especially with everything transitioning back to a very, very familiar setting, you would expect some of these seniors, some of the people that have been around the program for 3, 4, 5 years now, this is kind of your moment. Like, this is in a way, I feel like Oklahoma has an advantage because they've been in this position so many times, and obviously going for an unprecedented 4th consecutive national title.
Yeah, you look the way Tiara Jennings has been the last few weekends. Jada Coleman with another incredible catch.
That was unbelievable.
How?
Unbelievable.
What?
Some of the shots, I think Mike Simons, one of the Tulsa World photographers, the pictures that he had from Jada Coleman's catch in center field, unbelievable.
It's fun to look at the fans.
Yeah.
As much as you like seeing Jada climb the wall, it's fun looking at those fans. Like, how did she just do that? But, I mean, so you're seeing the seniors rounding the form. Kinsey Hansen able to get the long ball going.
Sure.
First time in a while for her. I've been wondering with that knee if she hasn't been able to have that power. Mm-hmm. She's been making contact, solid contact the entire season, but she hadn't had that pop to her swing, and she was able to get one out against Florida State. So a lot of those seniors with a lot of confidence built from what they were able to do during this last weekend.
I got a chuckle out of Lonnie Alameda, the Florida State head coach, was basically, Oklahoma graduate, obviously. She was basically like, yeah, we're pretty sick of seeing Jada Coleman. She has a highlight reel every time that they play, it seems. And, they've obviously been familiar foes here over the last couple of weeks. It's going to be fun. I do think the biggest question mark going into Oklahoma City for Oklahoma is what?
I still think it's clutch hitting, especially because Duke has a pair of pitchers that really bring it.
Sure.
And they can go back and forth with them. So I don't question OU's pitching, although it was strange to see Kelly kind of struggle Thursday.
Well, she had to get through, the Thursday night, bases loaded, first inning, and you're thinking, oh, boy, here we go. This is going to be a 3-game series. And then all of a sudden she was out of it, and, obviously Oklahoma went on to win that first game 11-3. It was for a moment, though, like, uh-oh, this is not exactly what everybody signed up for.
Both of those games were. And then they were able to, persevere in the later innings, again, kind of just showing that championship medal that's made them who they are. But they just got to come up with a little more timely clutch hits. Again, you leave so many runners on base. You leave bases loaded, but there's so many opportunities. So it's like maybe you didn't get that one, but you get this one. So can they attack right from the jump and really put that seed of doubt into Duke's head?
Just kind of closing everything out from softball over the weekend. Loves Field, everything that you thought it would be for that scene, that type of platform, that setting for a regional or super regional.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And there's definitely, those seniors felt comfortable in that moment. We talked about a couple weeks ago, not playing their
what
best.
The hell's going on at Loves Field?
There you go. Not playing their best at Loves. That was not a problem these last 2 weekends.
They haven't had a problem playing at Hall of Fame Stadium. Maybe the name change will affect them some type of form or fashion, but it is a very comfortable setting. Oklahoma headed back up to Devon Park this week. It's going to be fun. Well, just in terms of schedule, so you win Thursday, you beat Duke. You would obviously advancing to the winners bracket. That game's on Saturday, right?
Saturday afternoon,
and
ABC game.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. The stage is rather familiar to Oklahoma softball this time of the year and playing, with basically the eyes of the country on them. It should be, in a way, too. I was thinking about this on the way down to Norman today. Kind of seems like Oklahoma's a little bit under the radar. Maybe not. Maybe not at all. But it seems like they've kind of glided into this thing as this team that, I think Oklahoma fans expect to win a national championship. I don't know about the rest of the country right now for Oklahoma.
Agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I think they feel like OU is still clearly top 8 good.
Sure.
And maybe
but are they an elite team?
Even top 4 of the, 4 of the best teams. But are they the best? I think there's a lot of people questioning that.
And I guess there is a little bit of a question mark when you talk about Texas being the number 1 team in the country, the number 1 team in the tournament. And all of a sudden, you look up on Saturday afternoon, it's like, are they even going to get out of the Austin Super Regional?
They got to fix their defense. You can't fix it in a week.
Sure.
But it's something Patty.
I think Oklahoma fans are wondering, where the hell has this defense been? Yeah,
in
Austin.
Oklahoma
played.
The defense in Austin showed up, but the defense in OKC in the Big 12 championship, they made some errors. OU took advantage. I think that's sort of what OU is counting on. If you put the ball in play, Texas won't always make it.
Oklahoma State, really impressive, obviously, over the weekend. I thought Arizona might grab a game from them, and those really weren't even competitive games.
Not even close. And it goes Kenny Gajewski after the Big 12 tournament saying, we lost. We're not really concerned. Okay? We lost to the Cougars. I know we all wanted Bedlam the next round of Bedlam in the semifinals, but we're not worried. We were a little tired. We'll be refreshed. They have looked so good in the first two rounds.
That's going to be a hell of a matchup with Florida, who I kind of look at as maybe they are the team that's coming in as the actual under the radar, maybe like a national championship or national championship series type dark horse in the Florida Gators. Tim Walton's team back kind of in another familiar spot.
Just like Patrick Murphy. Exactly.
Right. It feels good when these teams are back, It'll be interesting. Obviously, the weather's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. We mentioned it at the beginning. That's just kind of the rhyme and rhythm when you're talking about the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City at the end of May.
At least it's not severe. It is it's just supposed to be rain, and so we'll see when it hits, where it hits. They're talking about 2.5 to 4 inches total in the next 3 to 4 days, but it's gonna be spotty as to when it actually comes.
Well, hopefully it comes overnight and it doesn't affect some of the games with Oklahoma playing on the top side of that bracket with all the afternoon games that are ahead. Do they flip brackets still at the Women's College World Series? Do they not do that anymore?
Yeah, it's just like the way it worked out last year. Stanford worked its way back, but there's still
you still flip flop and all that kind of
stuff.
stuff.
Still a chance of beating as many teams as humanly possible and earning your right to get there.
It's going to be fun. I'm very excited about everything that's to come from Devon Park. Media Day on Wednesday, correct?
Yep.
And then they get underway. It's kind of weird with Memorial Day and not really having a whole lot going on Monday. That it's like you wake up today, you got Media Day tomorrow, and then obviously everything gets underway over at Devon Park on Thursday. I was down in Norman on Monday. Oklahoma gets the number 9 national seed. I think that there was a little bit of surprise. It was a little bit deflating at the Sooner watch party when Georgia was announced as number 7. Florida State slides into number 8. So that means that a super regional with Oklahoma and possibly Florida State.
Could be like softball.
These between the OU and the ACC, it seems like are having quite the affair right now, with obviously Oklahoma getting through Florida State to only take on Duke. Duke headed to Oklahoma for the Norman Regional, a possible matchup with the ACC in Florida State in a super regional. That's going to be a tough regional, though, down in Tallahassee. Bama. Just as much as in Central Florida. I don't know if they can make a lot of noise, but obviously when Central Florida gets to the semifinals of the Big 12 tournament, gets beat by Oklahoma State, which don't get me started on that bracket, which was just awkward and weird to begin with. But you have an Oklahoma baseball team that, obviously they've won 20 of 25 coming in. They've won 11 of 13. They have the one loss. I think that one of the things that I got to chuckle out of Skip, I think it was even yesterday, he mentioned, OU and OSU, OSU wins the Big 12 tournament, but they had the same record. They were both 2-1. It is kind of weird in that, or I guess Oklahoma State ended up being 3-1. You get the idea, though. They had the same amount of losses. no, it might be kind of controversial to say. I didn't think OU played extremely well over the weekend in Arlington. Now, Braden Davis, complete game shutout in the opener against ECU. That was fantastic. He was excellent. He's your number one starter. The 7-air game, though, you're lucky to win that. You were lucky to beat Kansas the first time around, and then you needed some Jackson Nicholas heroics in the 8-6 win and the walk-off win on Friday night. Saturday, though, you just didn't get a whole lot of I didn't think the pitching was bad as much as Oklahoma State just pounded them. And I think that, like, when you're talking about Oklahoma getting into a regional now against a Duke team that set the school record for home runs, 111 on the year. They scored 43 runs in the ACC tournament, 16 in the championship game. They got their work cut out for them. I don't think that you can necessarily, like, I know there's a lot of attention to the national seed and not getting a super regional, and, are they going to have to go to Tallahassee to play in a super regional? You better worry about getting through the regional first. First things first, UConn and Oral Roberts, who Skip Johnson, as their name popped up on the screen on Monday, quickly reminded they beat our ass last time, I think is the exact quote. It's going to be fun. Noon on Friday in the first game of the Norman Regional. That is UConn and Duke. Duke obviously coming in with the ACC tournament championship. They get the automatic bid. UConn an at-large bid. And then you have Oral Roberts, who obviously made it through the summit. Kind of a weird deal. Like you host if you win the tournament the year before. So it was all up at J.L. Johnson Stadium up in Tulsa. They're able to get th30 the Summit League, 27-30-1 overall. Not sitting here saying that Oklahoma fans should be scared. I am interested to see kind of how they go about the rotation going into this weekend, because I think in if things were to go perfectly, you would want Braden Davis to pitch the winter bracket game against Duke on, or whoever comes out, Duke or UConn, on Saturday night.
Can you afford to do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the question mark. And the way that Grant Stevens pitched, I think he is your number 3. He kept them in that 7-air game. Were able to really, truly give themselves an opportunity to even come back and win that game after looking up, and it's 6-0 so early in the game. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what Oklahoma gets going into this weekend. And, if nothing else, I think it should be pretty good vibes over at L. Del Mitchell. First postseason regional since 2010. There's a lot of things historically that this Oklahoma team has been able to accomplish, whether it be the conference wins in a season or bringing back postseason baseball. It's all good and everything's kind of peachy right now. But I do think, like, in the back of my mind, you look at the way that Oklahoma's played against some of the better opponents this year. Yes. Can you rely on bats? Can you just rely on bats to get you to where you want to go? And I think that's going to be the biggest question mark. They're going to have better pitching than they've had over the last couple weeks.
What was sort of the mood Monday, especially with Skip? We know you're deflated.
Sure.
You wanted to, but how quickly did he try to turn it back around?
Almost immediately. It was kind of somber. I think that they have downplayed it. There had to have been some disappointment just in terms of not getting that top 8 national seed, because I think it was more of like we've accomplished what we accomplished. Our resume was really good. We did it against the number 10 strength of schedule in the country.
Exactly.
And weren't able to really kind of celebrate that in a way, even though you get to the Big 12 championship. I think, like, going into that, and especially the way that they came back and won the game on Friday, and, you got the walk-off win, it was like, okay, I think they've done enough. They've done enough.
That's where I was.
Right.
That's exactly where I was.
And they just didn't. They didn't get it. I think that there was a lot of it's better to be on this side of things than College of Charleston that won 41 games in the regular season and didn't get into the NCAA tournament. I know that it was made out to be a pretty big deal in terms of talking about this, just the overall 64 that were announced on Monday. That if you had a voice in the committee room,
Florida, Kansas State,
somehow, some way you got your team in, which I think is, kind of a bigger conversation about college baseball and the way we're selecting teams. I think the Oklahoma basketball team certainly probably feels like that in the way that the, March Madness broke out. But disappointment, to be sure. But I think that, if nothing else, if you want to take it glass half full, maybe this is a chip on the shoulder that this Oklahoma team needed going into a regional where, I think that them or Duke is probably going to be the favorite going in. We were at the watch party on Monday, talked to Skip Johnson about the disappointment of not getting a top 8 seed, as well as a familiar foe in Oral Roberts. And here is the Oklahoma head coach, the Big 12 Coach of the Year, talking about the Norman Regional.
First things first,
disappointment that you guys didn't get a national top 8 seed?
Not at all. I mean, it's we can't control that. We only can control what we can control, is that's going out and playing it one pitch at a time, one inning at a time. I'm extremely excited that we're playing a regional at our field, and looking forward for that opportunity with some good teams coming in.
There's some familiarity with Oral Roberts. You guys have already played them this year. Good, bad, indifferent?
No, they're good. I like it. I mean, they're a good team, well coached. They're playing really good late, and so it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully we can have big crowds and barbecue pits out there, smoke going everywhere. It's exciting for opportunity for our young team. I mean, out there, a good program. When you get in a regional, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, that's part of being in a regional, and that's the exciting thing about it. It's what we built the program around. That's what we're trying to maintain. I mean, the program was built before I got here with Coach Seymour and how he did his job, and so that's the watermark that we want to look at, getting to a regional and trying to go to Omaha every year.
Heard you kind of mention to the guys that obviously Oral Roberts, you know, they got you last time in April. Is that going to be a reminder this week that not that they need to be reminded?
I don't think they need to be reminded. They know how good they are.
Yeah.
And we just got to be able to play our game and one pitch at a time, one inning at a time, and do what we can to control what we can control.
Kind of mentioned it a little bit already, but just the accomplishment of getting a regional at home. Obviously, postseason baseball hadn't been here in a while, so to do that.
The accomplishment of what we did all year is really big.
Yeah.
I mean, winning the conference the way we won the conference, getting a regional. I mean, we're one of 64 teams that are in the country of 300 some odd teams that have baseball to get, go to postseason. So that's exciting as it is, and we're going to go out and get after it and have fun.
Oklahoma lost to Oral Roberts up in Tulsa. You wouldn't have to go back very far. April 30th, a couple weeks ago, a 3-1 loss, a night that was just awkward, to say the least.
I remember you saying that.
Couldn't get any offense going. It was just they went through the motions up there, and every ball that they hit looked like it was getting hit by like 40-mile-per-hour winds that was just knocking everything down. Now, they did play well over the weekend offensively. I thought that there were moments where, like, for instance, the 7-air game against Kansas, you out-hit them 14-4. There was no reason that they should have even been into the game. Now, Oklahoma State was a little bit different. Tommy Molsky has been really good against Oklahoma. Even in the Kansas game on Friday, you had the Fairley kid. He came into the day, 16 2/3 innings, 12 strikeouts. He struck out 11 batters in 4 innings against Oklahoma. So it was just kind of an awkward weekend, but at the same time, you got to the Big 12 championship, so you can't really bitch and complain about that.
Where did this offensive surge from Kendall Pettis come from?
I don't know. He was really good, though.
Wow.
He goes 8 for 12 over the course of the weekend. Named one of 7 suitors named to the All Big 12 tournament, or the All Big 12 tournament team. He was really, really good. He made the amazing grab on Wednesday in the TCU game that kind of like sparked everything for Oklahoma that day. And obviously, Braden Davis was excellent. You win your 7th consecutive start. He's been unbelievable, though. He's been the Kendall Pettis that I think a lot of people thought you were going to get at the beginning of the year. He talked about it after the game on Saturday, basically like, every time that I put on a uniform right now, I don't know if it's going to be my last game. So maybe you can kind of bottle all that energy up and you get a really good performance over the course of the weekend. Now, the same can't be said for as good as Kendall Pettis was in left field and in the lineup. John Spikerman was awful over the weekend. I think he ends up going 3 for 15 at the plate. Not really just truly worried about that in the right field corner. You're going to have Bryce Madron back. He is slated to go on Friday in the opener against Oral Roberts. They held him out after getting, I think, nicked up is probably the best way to say it. Kind of pulled something on that catch that he made in Cincinnati in the doubleheader. Did pinch hit on Friday night, so that was good news. I think he's going to be okay, though, going into this weekend. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's a really good regional for Oklahoma. You missed out on getting LSU. You missed out on Dallas Baptist.
No, sir.
But it's kind of the same thing that we talked about with softball with Duke. I think they're underseeded, and to see Duke come in here this weekend, Wallace Clark, if you remember that name from the 2022 Omaha team, he is transferred out there. He's playing shortstop for the Blue Devils. Certainly probably didn't have the type of year that you're going to see some of the Stone, the catcher for Duke, was an all ACC guy. He's up for the Johnny Bench Award, which is given out in Wichita. So it's going to be a tough matchup, but it's not a matchup that I don't think that Oklahoma can if they weren't to get to a regional championship, obviously that would be a disappointment. If you didn't win the regional, though, there is an avenue that you could talk me into that because Duke can hit the ball so well because they have the power. It's reminiscent a little bit of what Texas was able to do in that series in Norman that was rain-shortened a couple weeks ago. If you look up and all of a sudden, Duke has 6 two-run homers, they're going to be in trouble. You need the pitching to be much better. Now, I will say, I thought the bullpen was pretty good over the weekend, and I think that going in, that was going to be one of the biggest question marks. What are you going to get from Carter Campbell? I thought he was excellent, especially starting on Saturday in the Big 12 Championship. I thought, to a certain extent, Carson Atwood was really good. Robert Lambert was really good. There was moments in both of those Kansas games on Thursday and Friday that if you don't get good bullpen pitching, you're probably not talking about playing in the Big 12 Championship. So they need those guys to continue on. Obviously, you're going to need to get good starting pitching, and that's where it kind of becomes interesting. Are you going to start Kyson Witherspoon against Oral Roberts and maybe gamble a little bit and let Braden Davis pitch on Saturday in a would-be winner's bracket game? I think those are kind of the big question marks going into the weekend for Oklahoma. Not just terribly too worried about what they're going to get offensively.
You go back to that pitching decision because it is the biggest one. You have the way Braden attacked last week. Yeah, gave Skip the freedom.
He's been excellent
to do whatever you need to do on Thursday and Friday. So do you go back to that mindset, or you say we're good enough, no matter how our pitching fares against Oral Roberts, we need Braden Saturday?
I wish I could tell you that when we talk to Skip on Thursday, we'll have a little bit better idea. I don't think he's going to show his hand. I think thankfully I don't have a gun to my head, but I don't know. Maybe I will. This is America, right? It would probably go Kyson, Braden, and you save him. But then again, who knows what they're going to do.
If you pitch Braden Saturday, that just takes away any chance on Monday, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
It's all
like
strategy.
in the if game, in the game 7, if they were to get there. It is going to be a little bit weird, too, and I don't think that, the time of the games have any difference, but 12-6 on Friday, and then you move to 2-8 the rest of the weekend. So some late start times at Eldell Mitchell Ballpark, and much like softball, we're going to be keeping an eye on the weather radar. Because it doesn't sound like it's going to be a clean bill this weekend. I think that you're going to be battling weather. Not going to be the only regional in this region of the country that's going to be doing that. Oshi's going to be doing the same with Niagara and Florida and Nebraska, but it will be kind of interesting. I was a little bit surprised, though, I guess, just to round this all out, that the Big 12 was left out of the top 8. But then again, at the same time, you can't lose game to Oral Roberts. You can't lose some of the midweek games. You can't lose to Lamar, who ends up not making the NCAA tournament.
Not even making it, yes.
Kind of like College of Charleston. I think they have a platform to bitch about for not getting in. So it's going to be fun. Postseason baseball is coming back to Eldell Mitchell, which, I think at the end of the day, if you would have said, hey, at the beginning of the season, they're going to be, and maybe even coming out of that Lamar. I was talking to Toby Rowland before the game on Saturday night at Globe Life, which, by the way, fantastic ballpark. Awesome ballpark. It is just kind of weird having conference games there or, conference tournament games there because you can have 10,000 people like you did on Saturday night.
It doesn't come off that way on TV. It just doesn't.
No. Everything is echoing.
Yep.
Like even on Friday when Kendall Pettis is part of the or Thursday, when Kendall Pettis drops the fly ball in left field, like you can literally, and we're way up there on the 3rd level, you can literally hear him calling the ball. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of weird. But regardless, talking to Toby Rowland before the game on Saturday night before the Big 12 tournament championship game, and it's like, if you would have told me on, what would that have been? The Lamar series was end of March 28th and 29th. Very unprofessional. George Stoya, ladies and gentlemen.
What are you doing, George?
George Stoya calling me. Here, I'm going to just answer it real quick. George.
You're on Stickball.
We're doing the Stickball report. You're running the show right now. Apologize. Apologize to everybody. Say sorry. We're just going to hang up on him. If you would have told me that this team was going to be talking about hosting a regional, I would have said you're crazy.
Absolutely.
Right? So I know this is kind of like a morale thing. I think what they've been able to do and the way they were able to close the season and the number that they were able to put up in the 23-7 mark in the conference, you're certainly not saying, it's all good, everything's a cherry on top. But at the same time, for them to get here, for them to host, I think it's been an incredible year. I think it's kind of a little bit of a skyrocket of where, this program or trajectory of where this program's headed. But you will still want to win a regional. You want to get to a super regional, all that kind of stuff. So I do think Duke's really, really good, though. You're going to need really good pitching if you want to get out of this weekend. And I think if we're back here next week and maybe talking about a championship series for the Oklahoma softball team, or we're talking about Oklahoma moving on to a super regional, you're going to be saying OU pitching was really, really good over the weekend. They were able to just put up enough runs. And I don't think the offensive side of things is going to be much of a problem.
Skip won't look ahead, but we're going to.
Yeah.
Does Florida State win?
They should. They should. But I think Alabama, much like a Duke, they could go in there and win that region, and it would not be a surprise. So I think that, yes, it should be an OU Florida State super regional down in Tallahassee next weekend. But if we're sitting here talking about maybe a Duke coming out of it, or a UConn coming out of it, or a Central Florida or an Alabama coming out of the Tallahassee regional, I don't think that's crazy. And if OU were to win, like we hit on top, if OU were able to win and you get an upset in Tallahassee, all of a sudden you're talking about a super regional.
Who cares about your national seed? You're still coming to Norman.
You're still coming through Norman. So it's going to be quite fun, quite interesting week ahead. Make sure that you check out SoonerScoop.com. We'll be here throughout the week. Really good time to join SoonerScoop.com too. $1. That's pretty self-explanatory. $1. Promo code OU1. Promo code OU1. It will be $1. We'll catch up with the great George Stoya, where he's down in Destin at SEC coaches meetings, which, I think we're just about a month away from all that beginning, which is kind of crazy. He talked to Brent Venables for about 40 minutes today. We're going to get him right back onto the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel at some point here on Tuesday to talk about everything Brent Venables talked about down there with the media. So good to have George down there. Bob, you'll be up in Oklahoma City. I'll be in Norman for a bunch of Diamond Sports here throughout the week. So it's going to be fun, man. You expect Oklahoma to –
I expect us to be talking about a championship series next week.
I thought the demise of the softball program was upon us, and they're going to be playing for a fourth consecutive national title, possibly. So a lot to get into here as we get into the Diamond Sports here at the end of the week. Everything starts in Oklahoma City on Thursday, in Norman on Friday, and once again, we'll be recapping everything right here on SoonerScoop.com's YouTube page. For Bob Brzbillo, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll talk to you next time for the Stickball Report.